Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chasing a Murderer. Before we get started, make sure that you push the like button, subscribe, and say hello in the comments. We're on part 167 of Life Beyond the Grave, the JJ Vallow and Chad Daybell story. Today, we're going to start off talking about Chad Daybell's brother-in-law, Jason GWilliams. Now, he gives us a little bit of insight I think is very important to understanding who Chad is and how he can kind of take these stories and build them up to be more and more. Jason testified at Chad's trial. He gave us an important information on Chad's background that led up to his move to Rexburg and his teachings about end days. Before Chad moved to Rexburg, Jason and Chad Daybell were quite close, and their relationship really started to deteriorate 2019. According to Jason, he said that Chad's NDE actually would evolve over the years. It went from an unforgettable incident to an NDE with a powerful message and visions. Jason said that he felt like Chad was also trying to take over his family and their decisions. Let's listen to some of his testimony.
Did he ever ask again for you and your family to move to Idaho?
There was a letter that was written to me.
When was that letter written?
In 2016.
And that was a letter from who?
That was from Chad.
What did he say in that letter?
In that letter, he essentially told me that we needed to be in Idaho.
Did he say why he believed that?
He said we needed to be in Idaho because within the next 3 years, there would be a giant earthquake, that Springville and my house would be shaken to the ground and destroyed, and that we needed to escape that destruction before that happened.
Did he claim that to be part of his visions?
Yes.
Did he say anything about the concerns he might have had with your wife?
He did.
What did he say?
He informed me that she was allowed to go south and that the spirits, in particular the dark spirits, would allow her to go south to do whatever she wanted to do, but she was not able to come to Idaho to see the glory and the visions that would happen, and that she more or less was being held back.
What did you take that to mean?
I took that to mean that she was being controlled by dark spirits.
How did you react to him telling you that, or
I wasn't
expressing that? Sorry.
I wasn't thrilled.
Why not?
Because I have a responsibility and a stewardship over my family. That's not Chad's responsibility.
Can you explain to the jury that word stewardship as you're using it? What do you mean by that?
When I'd say the term stewardship would be an ownership or a responsibility or a something of that nature. That is my duty and my job, my responsibility.
You just use the word ownership. Are you suggesting that you feel like you own your family?
I wouldn't say that I own my family, but I have a responsibility to them.
Is the idea of stewardship something that is mainstream to the LDS Church?
Yes.
Why were you offended by Chad's statements about your wife and dark spirits relative to your stewardship?
I felt that he was trying to take a stewardship over my family and trying to tell us what we needed to do and where we needed to be.
Did you express any concerns to Chad about that?
Not at the time.
Did you ever, I'll withdraw that. I think you explained that there were some times after they moved to Rexburg that you would come up and visit them?
Yes.
Was there ever a time that, I'll withdraw that. When you come to visit, what would Chad tell you?
He would, at that time, we didn't talk in depth about any of the different opportunities to come up there because typically there was another event going on. And he would just explain to me how nice it was and just talk about how things are going up there and that things were wonderful.
Did he ever explain any more about his visions of what was going to happen in Rexburg?
He did. He actually invited me to come up on a trip. I took a day trip, went up there and was shown around Rexburg, was taken to BYU, Idaho. I was taken to other various places throughout town.
Do you remember when that trip was?
That trip would have been in 2016. I think it was the spring.
And what kinds of things was he sharing with you as he took you around Rexburg?
He was showing me that this would be a place of city of light, that there would be a refuge for people to come, that it would be a safe haven.
pausing it there because we already heard that testimony. We're going to continue with Jason's testimony where he speaks on how Chad Daybell's visions kind of started to evolve.
Did you and Chad share the same religious views, generally speaking?
Generally speaking, while he was in Utah, yes, we did.
Had Chad ever confided in you or shared with you any experiences that he may have had in La Jolla, California?
He did.
Can you explain La Jolla? Can you explain to the jury what did he tell you about that experience?
Said he had an experience that was a little life-changing in the fact that he was in the ocean. Large wave came in, a lot of rocks, smashed him against the rocks, chewed up his back pretty good, and it was one of those moments that you just don't forget.
And did he also share with you an experience that he had in Flaming Gorge, Utah?
Yes, he did.
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. This is becoming leading. Oral.
Yes, he did.
What was that experience?
Another experience in his youth where he was jumping off cliffs, and as he hit the water, he felt that his spirit separated from his body and become torn from his body.
Is that something that he'd explained to you originally?
He had talked to me about that.
Judge, could we get some foundation as to time, date? Sure. Can you let the jury know when did these conversations occur? What year?
Conversations occurred early 2000s when we would have conversations about that.
And we'll get to it later, but was there a later time that you also discussed these?
We did discuss these later, yes.
But in the early 2000s is what you're saying as to these two conversations,
yes.
Is that right? At some point in time, did Chad's religious views change?
I believe they did.
Let's first explain to the jury, when did you first start seeing this kind of a change?
I would say at the time he started writing his books.
Can you pin it down to an approximate year?
If I were to put an approximate year to it, I would say 2006 to 2007.
In what way did his religious views change?
They became more focused, hyper-focused on preparing end of times, things of that nature.
When you use the word hyper-focused, what do you mean by that?
I think as a general rule, most people involved in our religion have a tendency to try to round out the religious information they receive. And in this case, by saying hyper-focused, I would say that it became more of an obsession and more than normal.
At any point in time, during this time frame, did Chad ever express to you a feeling that he had received visions?
He did.
And approximately when did he first start expressing that to you?
Probably around 2010, 2011.
What types of visions did he tell you that he was having?
They were visions regarding how things were going to play out in the last days.
At some point in time, did Chad again visit with you about this experience from Flaming Gorge, and La Jolla, California?
Yes, he did.
Did anything about the experiences as he shared them with you change?
Originally, there were experiences that you have that are impactful. They soon became near-death experiences as opposed to just something that was impactful.
Could you explain a little bit more about that to the jury as to what Chad would explain when he couched them as near-death experiences?
So originally, when the stories were told, it was an experience that happened, and then it became an experience that happened in La Jolla, where I had an experience where I saw a relative that had deceased and passed on. And then the experience in Flaming Gorge became my body and spirit were torn and the veil was ripped and I could see into the heavens and into the eternities.
Was there anything about that change that you were concerned by?
Yeah.
What was that?
That it wasn't consistent, that it just became more of a narrative now.
This is really important testimony here because it makes you wonder if Chad even believes in God at all. It's just a way to manipulate people who do believe in God and believe that he does send messages and give people gifts. Seems that Lori's using it in the same way. So that's our question. Does Chad Daybell truly believe in anything that his religion stands for? Is it a way just to prey on others and their weaknesses and loyalty to God, that belief system. It seems that he and Lori somewhere, somehow, lost their faith. And the reason why they manipulate people with this is because this is something they grew up knowing. This is something they're skilled in. They are acknowledged with. For years, they've been searching for secret messages from God. So was this an opportunity for them to gain wealth, fame, attention, and build a compound to lead groups of people? So what they have in common, they both lied and manipulated others to get what they wanted, and no one's going to get in their way. You know, I've tried to figure them out. Sometimes they even fit the antisocial personality disorder, definitely fit the narcissism. We learned that everyone they manipulate is deliberate. They know what they know. They know what they're doing. This gives us a different outlook. Are these innocent people that are just become so disillusional in their faith? I don't think so. I truly believe that Chad and Lori were evil versus eviler. All right, let's go ahead and jump back into where we are currently in the timeline in the weekend of September the 19th through the 23rd of 2019. It's truly a key moment in this case. There's a lot going on. Lori, along with Chad, made plans for visitors Melanie and David Warwick. Since Chad and Lori are the leaders of the 144,000, they have a mission together. It's their obligation to kind of start pulling together the city of light, the New Jerusalem. Both claim that they can witness and testify that this land surrounding Chad Daybell's property has invisible structures only the chosen can see. They're large temples, tower into the heavens, which their story kind of mimics some of other biblical stories, such as Solomon and Nephi. The temples are to be used as strongholds as they usher in the return of Christ. It's also a place to gather for the 12 tribes, the chosen people. Christ is supposed to sit on this throne and reign from this New Jerusalem. Chad has connections with a real estate agent in the Salem area. And like many times before, he has scheduled for Melanie and David to take a tour of this property and the surrounding area. Of course, BYU is always on that schedule. We know that Melanie Gibbs' plans are to attend an event with her boyfriend David Warwick between touring this property, podcast, and visiting Lori. Chad and Lori's revelations grow stronger and more certain. Chad Daybell, who lived in this fantasy realm for a very long time, is starting to see some of those fantasies come true. And I think a lot of people still can't. I mean, what are the chances that Chad and Lori would have met? They seem to fit on the same plane. They have the same goals and same secrets and evils. They are each other's Bonnie and Clyde and yin and yang. Chad, enticed by his intense lust for Lori enticed by how easily manipulated and loyal Chad is to her. He would support her religious delusions over and beyond Lori's wildest dreams. That is, as long as Lori grabs Chad's storm, he would do anything for her. Lori wasn't happy with the fact that she is alone and had gotten rid of Charles. Tammy was still on this earth. Lori has become more stern in her desires to have Chad to herself. Chad Daybell's time is running out. It's September 19th, and according to an article written by Justin Lum, a woman flying to Arizona says that she's sitting on the plane next to Chad Daybell. A few more details here. They're heading from Idaho Falls to Mesa, Arizona. She said, my husband was sitting on the aisle seat, and I was sitting on the other aisle seat across from him, and Chad was sitting in the middle seat right by me. The woman was from Rexburg, and she said, the two talked about their families, religion, and the Daybell's fictional books about the end of times. Justin wrote that the woman claimed to have read Chad's books. All right, let's pause there. This is really important what this woman says here. She said that Chad told her he wasn't writing those novels anymore about apocalypse or something. He was just going a total new direction in the books that he was writing. Quote, he said, I hope I get this work done in time that I have before I have to be back, end quote. So this is the same day that Lori Vallow's using a nanny to watch JJ. We didn't hear much on this at trial, so it makes you wonder, was this witness telling the truth, or were they just not using this evidence? We just don't know. We know that this woman said that they were leaving Idaho Falls Airport. The nanny said that Lori and her brother were going to Idaho Falls Airport. Interestingly, the nanny said that Lori mentioned how she'd like to give JJ medication, not throughout the day or in the morning, but at night so that he could go to sleep. The nanny said that she even joked about how she liked that because some days when he was extra tough for her to handle, she would give him his meds and have him go to bed early. So it sounds like Lori's using those medications as a way to escape JJ. The nanny said that JJ was so upset with her that he said that his mom wouldn't want her to come over again, that he hated her and didn't want to be her friend. She noticed that Lori babied him, though he was having this meltdown. But what she doesn't understand is that the way that Lori also uses this bad behavior in order to deem him a zombie. So, according to Melanie, Chad is the type of person that is doing the reading of people. He's also the man that would mark spirits dark or zombies. Now, there's a witness that we'll later learn about, which is Ian Pulaski, would say that it was like this was ripped out of straight from Dungeons and Dragons manual. And he's right, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But first, we're going to listen to this testimony where they say Satan had the power to rip people out of their bodies. And it's just strange. David Warwick's testimony about Satan.
Did you agree or disagree generally with the things that Chad and others were teaching at that meeting?
I disagreed.
Do you remember specifically, besides the issue of a prophet, anything else that you disagreed with?
Yeah, they did. They talked about Satan having power to push people out of their bodies and taking possession of them, and then the person's spirit would be stuck in limbo. They couldn't go forward because the body was still alive.
Did you discuss that teaching with Chad at all?
Yeah, I just said Satan was never allowed that power because that's something he wanted to do from the beginning, and God put a boundary there so he could not do that.
So you didn't believe these things? Is that fair?
Ian wasn't kidding, because there are games out there, you can look at them online, where people use demons like Asmodeus as a character. And the description of these characters are going to seem very familiar to you, those of you that follow this case very close. Asmodeus, a hell's archangel sent to hell. He controls his victims because they are possessed with worms and snails. Remember that. Chad and Lori's list of zombies are growing. That list is getting incredibly long. Tammy Daybell being one of those zombies, he told Julie that his plans could not move ahead until his spouse had died. According to Julie Rowe, Chad told her this 3 weeks before Tammy passes away. According to an interview with Nancy Grace, Julie Rowe said, quote, he said in a frustrated, almost angry voice, very frustrated, I feel like my plan cannot move forward until Tammy has died, end quote. You gotta remember, during this time, Julie Rowe is very supportive of Chad, even though their relationship is kind of separated a bit. Chad Daybell's been getting quite a few emails with husbands that are not satisfied with him communicating with their wives. But there are rumors before Lori that Chad is, kind of getting smitten with a few of these women. Just mentioning this, that Jason Mal has an event at the same time Chad is flying to Arizona. So Jason Mal is in Billings, Montana. Somewhere in this time frame, Lori is searching, for signs of possession. At the same time, she's also looking up JJ's school. Let me play this clip for you. Here's something from one of the investigators they found out for September 20th.
JJ was deceased on the 20th, knowing, the user of the account looked up the definition and meaning of possessed.
Okay. And to clarify, I don't know if I did this before, Lolly Time Forever, who was that account associated with?
Lori Vallow.
We wonder if Melanie Gibb was with Lori Vallow when she was searching possession, looking for the symptoms of being possessed. Lori had mentioned that she had showed Melanie Gibb stuff on her computer before. According to Melanie's account, Lori Vallow was trying to convince her that JJ was acting differently and that he was acting like a zombie. So she was pointing out his vocabulary, how he watched TV. We'll talk more on this later. And Melanie Gibb claims that she just doesn't notice any of that. She just thinks JJ is usual JJ. One minute he's crying, the next he's acting out, but she just really don't see anything like this compulsive behavior Lori's trying to point out to her. Lori's complained over and over how he's not sleeping, he's having these nightmares. Something I'll never forget is how Lori was pushing JJ's using this vocabulary as if he's learning a different language, which is a long time symptom of being a zombie. So, while Melanie Gibb is talking about these zombie behaviors of JJ, David Warwick is on his way, and then he will arrive September 20th. So let's listen to his testimony.
When you say you took a long weekend, what weekend was that?
September 20 through the 23rd, 22nd, right in there.
Okay. Of 2019?
Yes.
Okay. And so, forgive me, you were coming up for kind of three purposes?
Yes.
And those three purposes were what?
To go spend some time with my son and his family in Pocatello. He just moved there a couple weeks previous. And then the Book of Mormon conference was there in Rexburg. And then to see Melanie.
Okay.
And to do the podcast.
Okay. When you say to do the podcast, had you participated in any of the podcast sessions that Lori Vallow and Melanie and others had done before?
No, I did some with preparing people, but nobody else.
Okay. And so one of the purposes was to come up and to do the podcast with Melanie, Lori. Anybody else going to participate in that podcast?
No.
Okay. Where were you supposed to record the podcast?
At Lori's apartment.
Okay. And so you came up, I believe you said September 20th, and you were going to go to Lori's to do the podcast?
Yes.
All right. Where did you stay that weekend?
I was going to stay in a hotel in Idaho Falls to kind of be in the middle with everything. But Melanie called me and said, hey, don't waste money on a hotel. Lori's got an extra room here. Why don't you just come and stay here?
Okay.
And the majority of the weekend is going to be in Rexburg anyway, so I decided to stay there.
Okay. So when you got to Lori's place in Rexburg, Idaho, who was at the house, if you remember?
When I got there, Alex Cox, Melanie, Lori, and JJ.
Okay. Now, had you met JJ Vallow before that time?
No.
Okay. Do you remember what JJ was doing when you got there?
He was sitting on the couch playing with toys.
Okay. And did you interact with him at all?
Yeah, I got a Down syndrome boy, autistic, so I just sat down with him to include him. I wanted to see how he was doing and talk to him, but it was like I wasn't even there. He never acknowledged me.
Okay. Now, when you got there, did you see Tylee Ryan there at all?
No.
Did you ever see Tylee Ryan that weekend?
No, I never did. I did see her. I never did meet her.
Okay. Were you told where she was?
I was told that she was attending Rexburg, Idaho College, and she wanted to be independent.
Okay. And who told you that?
I think it was Melanie told. If I remember, Melanie asked Lori in front of me.
Okay. And then who told you that Tylee was attending college in Rexburg and wanted to be independent?
Yes.
Who said those words?
Lori.
And so after you have that interaction with JJ, did you have any other interactions with JJ that weekend?
Yeah, there was he had a cardboard box and he was cutting doors and windows out of it, making a home out of it. So I got next to him again and just tried talking to him, but it was the same experience.
Okay.
He was very focused on that and didn't acknowledge me at all.
Okay. And did you ever see him engage with anyone?
I think he engaged with Alex once, and I can't remember what they were talking about, but it looked like a good relationship. Then he got to go outside and play with some children. And you see, when he went outside, he just looked really happy.
Now, that weekend, did you see Chad Daybell at all?
Yes.
Okay. How many times did you see him, if you remember?
I would say 4 times,
okay,
according to memory.
Okay. Can you tell us about any those interactions?
That's when he was trying to teach me about some of their beliefs. About the gathering of the 144,000 and then Satan having powers to push people out of their bodies and then the spirits being stuck.
Now, you indicated that he started talking about beliefs in that, and the 144,000, right? Yeah. That's what you said. Who was present during this conversation?
Melanie and Lori.
Okay. Did Lori participate in the conversation at all about those issues?
Not that I can recall. He seemed to lead the way on that.
Okay. And did you, what was your response to Chad's, sort of concepts?
I just said, if the Lord's gathering is 144,000, I believe that would happen through his prophet. And then, as far as the Satan having power to push people out of the bodies, I said, we're taught differently in that. That can't happen. He's not given that kind of power.
So you hear David Warwick speaking about something we heard earlier. It's 2 different trials that he's testifying to on the same subject. So, according to him, Chad's the one teaching them that zombies are basically people where their spirit's been kicked out of their body by Satan. Demonic entity takes over. And the original spirit, well, they're stuck in limbo and jail until something's done with this demon that's taken over their body. Their body must be released. In other words, die. And so what they're doing is they're teaching that people like JJ, when they do these castings and stuff, and they can get the spirit to leave the body and the body dies, they're doing them a favor. Now, remember that box that David was talking about? That JJ was cutting out windows and doors. That box is described later by investigators. So just keep that in mind. So it seems that Lori and Chad are trying to prepare people for something that's coming just a few days from now. Also, Lori Vallow is preparing to get in contact with JJ's school soon because she looks up that school phone number. This is a few days before he disappears. The school confirms later that September 20th was the last day JJ was at school. Chad and Lori prepared to take Melanie and David on a tour. And one of those scheduled tours are going to be at the BYU College. Something we will hear multiple times because that's something Chad does often. But we can hear that David's he's there listening to what they have to say, but he's not making it easy for them to convince him of what they say is true. All right, guys, don't forget to like right now, subscribe. 30% of you watching this video haven't subscribed yet. I would really appreciate that. Do not forget to share one of our missing girls' faces today on your social media. I love you guys, and I will begin writing the next part of the series. See you soon.